Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ariel Truth Seeker. Today, we are in the Green Room Extension, where we're discussing women who run with wolves with my friend Rachel, local goddess. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's been a while since I've gone live. Hey, Kevin, thanks for showing up. Much love to you guys. We're going to be discussing the story, which is called Vasilisa. And we'll go through that here in just a second. But before we start, I want to let everyone give a chance to get everyone to come in and say hello. Hey there, biochemistry. Long time no see. Come on in, guys. Come on in. I want to show you guys what I've been working on, why I haven't been going live as much the last couple of months, weeks, years, however. I've been making candles. These are organic soy wax, non-toxic fragrance oils. They have wood wicks in the middle, so they're soot-free. And my business is REL Creations LLC. This is a gift set right here, or maybe not even just a gift set, but it's just a set of 3 that come together. I don't know if you can see it with everything. Oh well. This gift set has vanilla, lavender, and lemongrass sweet orange. The 3 candles. Oh gosh. So these are all fresh and ready to go. If you guys would like to talk about candles and stuff like that, let me put here. Please follow REL Creations on all social media for your handmade organic soy wax, hand-painted, personalized candles. All right, so without much further ado, let me go ahead and bring on Miss Local Goddess and get started. Hey, girl. Oh, God, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was just muted.
Hey. Thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it. So for those of you who don't know, Rachel and I are going back and forth on our channels. Her channel is on Odyssey, and she is also on Telegram. So the first half of chapter 3 was on her channel. So you guys, if you want to check it out, please go and see her. I actually do have your info. Let me just drop it really quick in the chat for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Please go follow and support Miss Rachel. All right, guys. There's a lot in there. So y'all find it and y'all go look. So the doll in her pocket, Vasilisa the Wise. I'm ready to read this story again.
Yeah, this was a really good read. And I've really enjoyed the breakdown from this author. Like, just mind-blowing on some of these symbols and the connections that she makes. So, just really excited.
I agree.
Yeah.
So Rachel's going to reread the story for us to refresh our mind about what the story is. And then we are going to go through the different symbolisms of the story, how they relate to our, basically, because stories are just a reflection of life as it is. So we're going to go ahead and see how it correlates. So Rachel, take it away, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Here we go. Once there was, and once there was not, a young mother who lay on her deathbed. Her face pale as the white wax roses in the scarcity of the church nearby. Her young daughter and her husband sat at the end of her old wooden bed and prayed that God would guide her safely into the next world. The dying mother called to Vasilisa, and the little child in red boots and white apron knelt at her mother's side. "Here is a doll for you, my love," the mother whispered, and from the hairy coverlet she pulled a tiny doll, which, like Vasilisa herself, was dressed in red boots, white apron, black skirt, and vest embroidered all over with colored thread. "Here are my last words, beloved," said the mother. "Should you lose your way or be in need of help, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. Keep the doll with you always. Do not tell anyone about her. feed her when she's hungry. This is my mother's promise to you, my blessing on you, dear daughter." And with that, the mother's breath fell into the depths of her body, where it gathered up her soul and rushed out from between her lips, and the mother was dead. The child and her father mourned for a very long time, but like the field cruelly plowed under by war, the father's life rose green and from the furrows again, and he married a widow with 2 daughters. Although the new stepmother and her daughters spoke in polite tones and always smiled like ladies, there was something of the rodent behind their smiles, which Vasilisa's father did not perceive. Sure enough, when the 3 women were alone with Vasilisa, they tormented her, forced her to wait on them, sent her to chop wood so her lovely skin would become blemished. They hated her because she had a sweetness about her that was otherworldly. She was also very beautiful. Her breasts were bounding, while theirs dwindled from meanness. She was helpful and uncomplaining, while the stepmother and stepsisters were, among themselves, like rats off in the offal pile at night. One day the stepmother and her stepsisters simply could not stand Vasilisa any longer. "Let us conspire to make the fire go out, and then let us send Vasilisa into the forest to Baba Yaga, the witch, to beg fire for our hearth. And when she reaches Baba Yaga, well, old Baba Yaga will kill her and eat her." Oh, they all clapped and squeaked like little things that lived in the dark. So that evening, when Vasilisa came home from gathering wood, the entire house was dark. She was very concerned and inquired of her stepmother, "What has happened? What will we have to cook with? What will we do to light the darkness?" The stepmother admonished her, "You stupid child, obviously we have no fire, and I can't go out into the woods because I'm old. My daughters can't go because they're afraid. So you are the only one who can go out into the forest to find Baba Yaga and get coal to start our fire again." Vasilisa replied innocently, "Well, all right, yes, I'll do that." And so she set out. The woods became darker and darker, and sticks cracked under her feet, frightening her. She reached down in the long, deep pocket of her apron, and there was the doll her dying mother had given her. And Vasilisa patted the doll in her pocket and said, "Just touching this doll. Yes, I feel better." And at every fork in the road, Vasilisa reached into her pocket and consulted the doll. "Well, should I go to the left or should I go to the right?" The doll indicated yes, or no, or this way, or that way. And Vasilisa fed the doll some of her bread as she walked and followed what she felt was emanating from the doll. Suddenly, a man in white on a white horse galloped by, and it became daylight. Farther on, a man in red sauntered by on a red horse, and the sun rose. Vasilisa walked and walked, and just as she came to the hovel of Baba Yaga, a rider dressed in black came trotting on a black horse and rode right into Baba Yaga's hut. Swiftly it became night. The fence made of skulls and bones surrounded the hut began to blaze with an inner fire, so the clearing there in the forest glowed with an eerie light. Now, the Baba Yaga was a fearsome creature. She traveled not in a chariot, not in a coach, but in a cauldron shaped like a mortar, which flew along all by itself. She rode this vessel with an oar shaped like a pestle, and all the while she swept out the tracks of where she'd been with the broom made from the hair of a person long dead. And the cauldron flew through the sky with Baba Yaga's own greasy hair flying behind her, her long chin curved up and her long nose curved down, and they met in the middle. She had a tiny white goatee and warts on her skin from her trade in toads. Her brown-stained fingernails were thick and rigid like roofs, and so curled over she could not make a fist. Even more strange was the Baba Yaga's house. It sat atop huge, scaly yellow chicken legs and walked about all by itself, and sometimes twirled around and around like an ecstatic dancer. The bolts on the doors and shutters were made of human fingers and toes, and the locks on the front door was a snout with many pointed teeth. Vasilisa consulted her doll and asked, "Is this the house we seek?" And the doll, in its own way, answered, "Yes, this is what you seek." And before she could take another step, Baba Yaga in her cauldron descended on Vasilisa and shouted down at her, "What do you want?" And the girl trembled. "Grandmother, I come for fire. My house is cold. My people will die. I need fire." Baba Yaga snapped. "Oh, yes, I know you and your people. Well, useless child, you let the fire go out. That's an ill-advised thing to do. And besides, what makes you think I should give you the flame?" Vasilisa consulted her doll and quickly replied, "Because I ask." Baba Yaga purred. "You're lucky. That is the right answer." And Vasilisa felt very lucky she had given the right answer. Baba Yaga threatened, "I cannot possibly give you fire until you've done work for me. If you perform these tasks for me, you shall have the fire. If not..." And here Vasilisa saw Baba Yaga's eyes turn suddenly to red cinders. "If not, my child, you shall die." So Baba Yaga rumbled into the hovel and laid down upon her bed and ordered Vasilisa to bring her what was cooking in the oven. In the oven was enough food for 10 people, and the Yaga ate it all, leaving just a tiny crust and a thimble of soup for Vasilisa. "Wash my clothes, sweep the yard and clean my house, prepare my food, and separate the milkweed from the good corn, and see that everything is in order. I will be back to inspect your work later. If it is done, if it is not done, you will be my feast." And with that, Baba Yaga flew off her cauldron with her nose as the windsock and her hair as the sail, and it became night again. Vasilisa turned to her doll as soon as the Yaga had gone. "What shall I do? Can I complete these tasks in time?" The doll assured her she could, and to eat a little and go to sleep. Vasilisa fed the doll a little too, then she slept. In the morning, the doll had done all the work, and all that remained was the meal to be cooked. In the evening, the Yaga returned and found nothing undone. Pleased, in a way, but not pleased because she could find no fault, Baba Yaga sneered, "You are a very lucky girl." She then called on her faithful servants to grind the corn, and 3 pairs of hands appeared in mid-air and began to rasp and crush the corn. The chaff flew in the house like golden snow. Finally it was done, and Baba Yaga sat down to eat. She ate for hours, and ordered Vasilisa on the morrow to again clean the house, sweep the yard, and launder her clothes. The Yaga pointed to a great mound of dirt in the yard. "In that pile of dirt are many poppy seeds, millions of poppy seeds, and I want, in the morning, to have 1 pile of poppy seeds and 1 pile of dirt, all separated out from each other. Do you understand?" Vasilisa almost fainted. "Oh my, how am I going to do that?" She reached into her pocket and the doll whispered, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." That night Baba Yaga snored off to sleep, and Vasilisa tried to pick the poppy seeds out of the dirt. After a time, the doll said to her, "Sleep now, all will be well." Again, the doll accomplished these tasks, and when the old woman returned home, all was done. Baba Yaga spoke sarcastically through her nose. "Well, lucky for you that you were able to do all these things." She called for her faithful servants to press the oil from the poppy seeds, and again 3 pairs of hands appeared and did so. While the Yaga was smearing her lips with grease from her stew, Vasilisa stood nearby. "What are you staring at?" barked Baba Yaga. "May I ask you some questions, grandmother?" asked Vasilisa. "Ask," ordered the Yaga. "But remember, too much knowledge can make a person old too soon." Vasilisa asked about the white man on a white horse. "Aha," said the Yaga fondly. "That first is my day." "And the red man on the red horse?" "Ah, that is my rising sun." "And the black man on the black horse?" "Ah, yes, that is the third, and he is my knight." "I see," said Vasilisa. "Come, come, child, wouldn't you like to ask more questions?" wheeled the Yaga. Vasilisa was about to ask about the pairs of hands that appeared and disappeared, but the doll began to jump up and down in her pocket. So instead Vasilisa said, "No, grandmother. As you yourself say, to know too much can make one too old too soon." "Ah," said the Yaga, cocking her head like a bird. "You are wiser than your years, my girl. How did you come to be this way?" "By the blessing of my mother," smiled Vasilisa. "Blessing?" screeched Baba Yaga. "Blessing? We need no blessings around this house. You'd best be on your way, daughter." She pushed Vasilisa out into the night. "I'll tell you what, child, here." Baba Yaga took a skull with fiery eyes from her fence and put it on a stick. "Here, take this skull on a stick home with you. There's your fire. Don't say another word, just be on your way." Vasilisa began to thank the Yaga, but the little doll in her pocket began to jump up and down, and Vasilisa realized she must just take the fire and go. She ran for home through the dark forest, following the turns and twists of the road as the doll told her which way to go. Vasilisa came through the forest carrying the skull with fire blazing from its ear, eye, nose, and mouth hole. Suddenly she became frightened of its weight and its eerie light and thought to throw it away. But the skull spoke to her and urged her to calm herself and to continue toward the home of her stepmother and stepsisters, and this she did. As Vasilisa came nearer and nearer to the house, her stepmother and stepsisters looked out to the window and saw a strange glow dancing through the woods. Closer and closer it came. They could not imagine what it could be. They had decided that Vasilisa's long absence meant that she was dead by now, and her bones dragged away by animals, and good riddance. Vasilisa advanced closer and closer to home, and as the stepmother and stepsisters saw it was her, they ran to her, saying that they had been without fire since she left, and no matter how hard they tried to start one, it always went out. Vasilisa entered the house triumphant, for she had survived her dangerous journey and brought fire back to her home. But the skull on the stick watched the stepsisters and the stepmother's every move and burnt into them, and by morning it had burnt the wicked trio to cinders.
And that is Vasilisa the Wise. Oh my gosh, that was such a wonderful reading, Rachel. Thank you so much for reading that for us.
Yeah, thank you.
I really enjoyed this story a lot. I remember last time we read it, we talked like the first thing that came to mind, of course, was Cinderella, and how this was way different from Cinderella in as much as she is more self-empowered than Cinderella was, because all of Cinderella's magic came from someone else. She waited for someone else, she prayed to someone else, and you know, everything was coming to her. She didn't have to put any effort into it. And Vasilisa is much more intuitive. She is much more, just in tune with what she's doing. And she learns way more. I don't think Cinderella learned anything besides, her own shoe size.
She's like, "I know that these fit me now."
Right, exactly. So I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to go over some of the things that we pulled out last time so that we remind ourselves and we don't spend too much time on them. Clarissa, which is the author, I probably should call her by her last name, but I just call her Clarissa. So Clarissa brought out 9 different tasks that are really stick out in the story, actually. The first one is allowing the too good mother to die. This is where the psychic tasks in this stage in a woman's life is to accept that ever watchful, hovering, protective psychic mother is not adequate as a central guide for one's future instinctual life. The too good mother has to die. The taking on of the task of being on one's own, developing one's own consciousness about danger, about politics, becoming alert to oneself, for oneself, letting die what must die. As the too good mother dies, the new woman is born. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, the too good mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just the thing with the too good mother is that she can just be too coddling, essentially. And it
Mm-hmm.
what the gift was Vasilisa's intuition. That's what she handed her with the doll. I'll always be with you. That was the blessing, essentially. So, but
Yeah.
the author does talk about why we need to let that too good mother die. It is a tragedy that a lot of these fairy tales involve the mom dying.
Really?
You're like, why is the mom always getting killed off? But it's
Seriously.
actually, she makes it sound like it's not such a bad thing because it allows the young girl to step into the wild woman archetype, which actually
Mm-hmm.
empowers her to be a mother in the future.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of learns to
Yes,
stand on
yes.
her own.
And remember, guys, that stories are simply using characters and archetypes to show us things in our own psyche. So when we're saying the too good mother has to die, we're saying that the part of Vasilisa that is coddling herself, that is keeping herself a child, she eventually has to overcome that and allow it to die so that she can develop into a more fuller woman. That I loved because one of the things that we talked about was the fact that the mom gave her the doll and said, you have everything you need. All you need to do is look inside you and you will figure it out. A lot of times we mothers can be way too coddling, right? And say, nope, you need to stay inside. You don't know anything. Just wait till I tell you and I'll let you know. But you don't need to know anything right now. And not empowering the daughter to know that she has every knowledge within her, to know right from wrong, and that she can trust that instinct. And that's what this too good mother did for Vasilisa. We go back from the too good mother to exposing the crude shadow, which is the second one. It talks about the bad and rotten step family. How we have to learn to even more mindfully let go of, the overly positive mother, finding that being good, being sweet, being nice will not cause life to sing, because Vasilisa is a slave, but it doesn't help. Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the jealous aspects, the exploitive aspects of self. That is going to be the stepmother and the stepsisters. Making the best of a relationship one can with the worst parts of ourselves, and letting the pressure build between one who is taught to be and one who really is. That right there was the ultimate being, because women are taught to be a certain way than from what they already intuitively are and know, and working towards letting the old self die so that the new intuitive self can be born. I really loved the representation of the mother and the stepdaughters there. Because they were, what did they say? It was like they were rat-like. It was like you just knew they were nasty.
Yeah, right. They're probably junky and like.
Yeah. They're probably like starting cocaine and shit. Go start the fire.
We need fire.
You need to go and sell some more stuff. Like,
We cannot wash our own clothes. There's no way. We're too strung out.
what's wrong with you? You can't wash your clothes? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? That was great. I loved going back. So guys, we're just touching these really quickly. Please go back and see Rachel on her channel on Odyssey. We go into much more detail about these ones. I just want to touch on them a little bit because it's just such a good chapter.
Yeah.
Such a good chapter. Okay, so from the step family, who is the part of our ego that we don't want to admit is part of us, okay? Because we can be nasty, right? We can be envious. We can be selfish. We have all of that within us, but it's making peace with ourselves in such a way that we can surpass that ego, right? Just like what was the name of the story with the buzzards who came to eat the husband?
Bluebeard,
right? So this was another story that we reread, and it's just saying that the darkest parts of us, they don't have to be completely diminished. We're not supposed to try to kill them off completely. What we're supposed to do is dismantle them, understand where they're coming from, and then redistribute them into a place in our psyche where it can be healed, it can be used, right? I can use this dark encounter or this selfish need, and I can realize, okay, I can realize something else, and I can be selfish about something else somewhere else in a better way. Like because you are supposed to be selfish sometimes, and we aren't supposed to be selfish sometimes, but it's what you focus on. It's whatever wolf you feed. If you feed the black wolf, then you will have a black soul. If you feed the light wolf, you will have a light soul. So that's my very short version of that.
I love it. And you summed it up so nice. These are those parts within us too. These stepsisters and the stepmother, like there's that criticism, and some people are driven by that, like, oh, you can't do this and blah blah blah. And there are people who let that drive them, that criticism from others. But sometimes, and even ourselves, we let ourselves be driven by that. Oh, people think this about me. And it's like, that may not be healthy. There is a level of criticism that is healthy. Self-critique is wise. But, when we're too hard on ourselves, then we're just trying to prove ourselves instead of just being ourselves. Because when you are in your power, you don't have anything to prove. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. So
exactly. Yeah. Because you're confident and you trust yourself. Like when you are because you're not worried about the other people in the world. And that's what our society wants us to worry about, being liked, to worry about fitting in, to worry about being accepted. Again, we're conditioned to all of this, but our individual souls have no way of being categorized. They have no way of being boxed in. They have no way of being diminished. So when you live in your creativity is your divinity, which I will always keep saying. When I first heard that, I was just like, oh my God, that's it. That's my connection to divinity. Like I'm done. Like I can draw now. I can sing now. It was so free, right?
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
No, you're on a roll. That's it.
Oh gosh. Okay, so let me move on to the next one, because the third task was navigating in the dark. So once the selfish parts of ourselves, the parts that we that we do hate, they want us to do good, because in reality we want ourselves to do good. So they send us away. They say, go away, go get fire, go look into the dark and go do some navigating in your subconscious and come back, when you have something to show us, which is basically what happens. And this navigating in the dark, let's see, she's talking about consenting to the venture into the locus of deep intuition, entering into the forest, and beginning to experience the new and dangerous feeling, Newman, of being in one's intuitive power. Learning to develop sensitivity as regards to direction into the mysterious unconscious, and relying solely on one's inner senses. Learning the way back home to the wild mother, heeding the doll's instructions, learning to feed intuition, which is feeding the doll, and letting the frail, knowing maiden die even more, shifting power from the doll. Shifting power to the doll, which is intuition. So when Vasilisa is going into the forest, she is going into her own psyche. It can be very scary to do that sometimes, but she has her intuition with her. She is never separated from the knowledge that is within her. And every time she gets scared and she needs to know what's going on or where to go, she just puts her hand in her pocket and obviously, guys, we know the doll is not talking, okay? But she's trusting the feeling in her heart because she's learned to strengthen or to trust that feeling because her mom gave her that blessing of, you know exactly what it is you need to do. You have everything, just trust yourself. And that was so freeing. I mean, she can rely on that. So, she goes through the forest, relying on her own intuition. She feeds her own intuition, which is something that we talked about really in depth, which you guys should go out and check out on Odyssey. Because, man, feeding your intuition and how you feed your intuition is very important. And then finally, letting the frail, knowing maiden die even more because she's walking towards the wild woman. The wild woman in our psyche is basically the core source of who we are. That is our creativity. That's our personality. She's walking to find herself and remind herself who she is. So she's already knows the way. She just has to trust herself. And that is what the doll has given her. Anything on that?
We did go through that quite a bit on the last one, so definitely check that out. Because listening to your intuition is a huge thing. The author points out that she has a PhD, she does do psychology, and she does work with clients, or she did at the time she was writing this. But hearing a lot of people say, and anyone listening, that you've done this, where you're like, oh, I should have listened to my intuition. You've done that, so it's a big deal. I love that she's feeding the doll through the forest, and essentially she's setting herself up that's what makes her wise, is that she's listening. And it works because she gets to Baba Yaga's house. She knows she can trust it because she reached her destination. If she didn't reach her destination, then of course you'd be like, oh, I don't know if I should listen. But she did. So that was, good on her.
Exactly. Her intuition didn't lead her astray. It led her exactly where she needed to go. And then that's when which is the fourth task, she faces the wild hag. This being able to stand in the face of the fearsome wild goddess without wavering. That is facing the imago of the fierce mother, which is meeting of the Baba Yaga. Familiarizing oneself with the otherness of the wild, which residing at Baba Yaga's house for a while, bringing some of her values into our lives, thereby becoming ourselves a little odd in a goodly way, eating her food, learning to face power in others and sequentially. I know this fucking word. Why my brain is going too far? Come back, reread this. And subsequently, there we go. One's own power, letting the frail and too sweet child die back even further. So this girl has grown a lot just from, living with her freaking family and then making it through the forest. And now she's facing face to face with the wild goddess. And she does so without wavering. She's standing there without fear. She is how she is. And we talked about this in the last stream. So you guys should definitely go check that out. Rachel, actually, would you mind? Do you have time? Can you go get the link from our last stream so we can go ahead and drop it in the chat? That would be great.
Sure.
So, meeting the Baba Yaga, meeting the real person who we are, the old source, the old knowledge that lives with every human being. All right, men, I know I've got some of my brothers who are watching this book targets women, but this story targets everyone because it's literally about the psyche, what's going on in your mind. Okay. When you've come face to face with yourself, you don't need to be scared of it. But because you are in a stage where you're maybe a little bit more naive than you'd like to admit, you need to ask it some questions. You need to learn some things. The Baba Yaga is going to have some tasks for you to complete. And you're going to have to complete those tasks and allow yourself to grow more through the evolution of that. Yeah. Anything good on that one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a vital part of the psyche. For ladies, this is what's usually known as the crone. It's probably the most fearsome aspect. It's why men get really turned off by women who have mastered this power, because it's pretty scary. I think we brought up Howl's Moving Castle, and that's a great example of being a powerful crone and seeing that and being attracted to that, but then being like, yikes, because she's a mess, right? She's the most wild part, but she's also the most knowing. For men, that's going to be your sage, your hermit, your wizard, your teacher. Those types of archetypes for you. They're going to always give you a task to prove yourself worthy of this information, because you can't just take a test. That's not how learning really works. You don't just go A, B, and C. I know everything. It's through life. Life is the teacher. Life is the test. So that is such a good part of the story, that she even just has to go and not be afraid. You can't be afraid of this part of yourself, because if you are, you won't have that mastery that you need so badly.
Exactly. That is exactly right. People who are Olympic skaters and athletes, they didn't just wake up one day and win the gold medal, right? They had to wake up every day and win the gold medal in their brain. They had to wake up every day and fight with themselves and work with themselves and make themselves better in their own mind. And that is the only thing we're supposed to do here on this earth. When she comes to the woman gives her task, and she has many tasks for her to do. And the fifth task that Clarissa, the author of the book, she calls it serving the non-rational, which I love, because Vasilisa might not have understood what she was doing or why she was doing it, right? It was irrational to her, but it wasn't irrational to Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga knew exactly what she was doing and why she was asking for these things to be done. So, awesome. Let me just grab this here and drop this in the chat. Hold on. So, here, oops. Here is part 1 of chapter 3. Please go and check out part 1, guys. There, I just dropped it in the chat. It is on Rachel's Odyssey. Yes, there it is. So we didn't want to spend a lot of time on this in the last stream, because she does have a lot of tasks. But we were saying that staying with the hag, accumulating to the great wildish powers of the feminine psyche, coming to recognize her own power or your own power, and the power of inner purifications, unsoiling, sorting, nourishing, building energy and ideas. She's washing Baba Yaga's clothes, she's cooking for her, she's cleaning her house, she's sorting out elements. Clarissa takes out each and every one of the tasks that Baba Yaga has her do and says, okay, what part of the psyche she's talking about here, what part of the psyche she's talking about here. And it was really, really fascinating to sit through and go through all of the different, or try to go through some of the different ones that we pulled out. Because each task has a meaning. So if you want to go and check that out on Odyssey, please go and do so. Because we're going to pick up now and go in depth on number 6, which is separating this from that. Did you want to lead on anything into the last one before we start on number 6?
No, I think it's probably best to hear that one because we did go through it. Yeah, I think it gives you a much more clear picture of the character of Baba Yaga and what living as that archetype really means. It's actually very beautiful alchemically. Like, her appearance is so scary and gross, but then when you really understand everything behind it, you're like, no, she's cool. She's wicked cool.
She's cool, right? Exactly. Yeah, we all want to be Baba Yaga by the end of this book.
Kind of gross.
But yeah, I mean, my nose and my chin being able to touch in the middle somewhere, like, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait till
whatever I got to do to be wild. All right, guys. So we're finally going to go ahead and start where we're going to pick up, which is the 6th task, separating this from that. This is the part of the tale where Baba Yaga requires 2 very demanding tasks. And Vasilisa, or a woman's psyche, she's supposed to be learning the fine discrimination, separating one thing from the other with the finest discernment, learning to make fine distinctions in judgment, sorting the millweed corn from the good corn, and sorting the poppy seeds from a pile of dirt, observing the power of the unconscious and how it works even when the ego is not aware, the pairs of hands which appear in the air. And then more learning about life, which is corn, and death, the poppy seeds. So one thing that is an overarching theme in this whole book, I'm pretty sure, is the life cycle, which really the whole separating this from that. I didn't like that she was using the word discrimination, but I understand why, because you need to tell the difference between a good kernel of corn and a bad kernel of corn, and you need to be able to discriminate between the two, like, because they could look a lot alike. Yeah, let me get my thoughts together.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, that word has been really vilified, but it's actually an incredibly important skill. I mean, we do it all the time on really mundane things without thinking about it, but it's a skill that you need to keep you out of trouble and to keep you, safe, and to form good relationships, be in good situations where you could be set up for a win. It's so important, and there's a reason for it. And because it is so important, it's so easy to vilify. Discernment in the thanks, Nomad. Yeah, in the chat. That is perfect. Yeah. So that's a word that I would love to see people start to really take back the power of that meaning on, and not get so triggered, like, oh, they were discriminating. Why? Let's talk about why.
Why?
Because there's a reason for it, and there are good reasons and there are extreme reasons, and we can agree that some people get extreme, and that's what's not okay.
Yeah.
But
exactly,
when you're not causing harm, it's a good thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because being able, she'll go on in here to talk about more of this stuff. what is she
Mm-hmm.
learning? Because some of this, I think she talks about how some of this corn, symbolically the mildweed corn carries a dual meaning. As a liqueur, mildweed corn can be used both as an inebriative and as a medication. There's a fungal condition
Mm.
called corn smut, a rather fuzzy black fungus which is found in mildweed corn, this being reputed to be hallucinogenic. So, she talks about the uses of these types of medicine from a healer standpoint. And
Mm-hmm.
I think she says, I had this highlighted, this is one of the loveliest phrasings in the story. The fresh corn, mildweed corn, poppy seed, and dirt are all remnants of an ancient healing apothecary. These substances are used as balms, salves, infusions, and poultices to hold other medicines on the body. As metaphors, they're also medicines for the mind. Some nourish, others put to rest. Some cause languor, others stimulation. They're facets of the life-death-life cycles. Baba Yaga is not only asking Vasilisa to separate this from that, to determine the difference between things of like kind, such as real love or false love, or nourishing life from spoiled life, but she's also asking her to distinguish one medicine from another.
Mm, mm. And isn't that the epitome of a medicine woman, a healer? Because you have to know the difference between the medicine and the poison.
You do.
And even the poison can be helpful if you know how to use it, right? Using discernment, using discrimination, all of that stuff in order to heal,
Yeah.
not in order to hurt anyone, but in order to grow and to heal. I love that she made that distinction between what all of the corn and the poppy seeds were, because they poppy seeds, I saw Anthony mention that early on when you were reading. He was like, oh, poppy seeds, where is this going? And I want to be like, no, wait a minute, calm down. All right. Poppy seeds have been used for a long time in medicine before somebody decided to snort it up the nose. Like
Before somebody abused the medicine.
Thank you. A long time before it was abused. And all the elements and tasks are teaching Vasilisa about the life cycle. We have to sort, she says, we have to sort out our psychic healing agents, to sort to understand that food for the psyche is also medicine for the psyche, and to wring the truth and the essence of these elements for our own nourishment. We are trying to only nourish ourselves, heal ourselves before we can heal anybody else. And then she talked a little bit about bringing women back to nature and how the garden was one of the places that mirrors the soul. That really touched me, because I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go out in nature, and I want to see the life cycle, and I want to be a gardener, and I want to just know how to do all that. Because really, I mean, if you think about it, if you're a gardener, you are Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
You know when your stuff is growing and when you need to trim it up to keep the pests away. And I mean, that is the epitome of the life cycle. She says that she thinks that a woman should keep a diary during that, which recording the life giving, the death giving, like it's just learning a better way to solidify it in our brains. But then also, because we're outside, we're in nature, that is what we always need to get back to, always. So I think that I appreciate that too, because no matter what we're going in our psyche, if we can get out in nature, then we're already 50%, there. You're halfway there. The ground, earth, Mother Earth, the fresh air, they will bring you the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's true. Well said.
Let's see. Was there anything else you highlighted in this section?
No, just what you were saying about the garden. It's a meditation practice, that of seeing when it's time for something to die. In the garden, one can see the time coming for both fruition and for dying back. In the garden, one is moving with rather than against the inhalations and exhalations of the greater wild nature. Yeah. Really participating. It's awesome.
Yes, yes, taking action and not just sitting there and watching. Anthony says he wasn't tripping, but that Vasilisa might be soon. That's too funny. That's too funny. So one of the tasks that Baba Yaga had her do was sorting of the medicines, right? And then we go from sorting the medicines to asking the mysteries. Um, After the successful completion of her tasks, Vasilisa asked the Yaga, some good questions. These questionings and trying to learn more about the life nature and how it functions. Vasilisa was asking about the horsemen, learning the truth about being able to understand all of the elements of the wild nature. To know too much can make one old too soon. I thought that this next paragraph was really interesting. So bear with me. I'm gonna read this. It says, we all begin with the question, what am I really? What is my work here? The Yaga teaches us that we are life, death, life. That is our cycle. This is our special insight into the deep feminine. When I was a child, one of my aunts told me of our family's legacy of the watery woman. She said that at the edge of every lake, there lived a young woman with old hands. Her first job was to put toots, which I can only describe to you as souls or soul fire, into dozens of beautiful porcelain ducks. So just so you know, guys, this watery woman with old hands is taking souls or soul fire and putting it into a beautiful porcelain duck. She then is supposed to take a wooden key and put it into the duck's back, and she winds it up. When the winding keys run out, the duck falls over and their bodies shatter. She's supposed to flap it with her apron at the souls so that they're released and shoo them up into the sky. Her fourth job is then she takes more soul fire, puts it in more porcelain ducks. She winds the key back up and continues to release them to live their lives. She then talks about soul fire and how the infusion of soul fire into our own ideas, our own lives, the lives of those we touch, that is our work. Shooing the soul to its home, that is our work. Releasing of a shower of sparks to fill the day and creating a light so we can find our way through the night, that is our work. I thought that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I love that. That just reveals the beautiful purpose of Baba Yaga, because that's essentially what she's doing to Vasilisa.
Yeah.
And that in turn is what Vasilisa can go on to do for other people. It's like you were saying, we have to heal everything within ourselves if we're going to go do that. If we're going to wind up and release people into life, and, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, it really is, because leading them into the life that they're creating, right? It's breathing life into your ideas, it's breathing life into your projects, it's breathing life into your decisions. Whatever decisions that you decide to make, whatever job you decide to take, whenever you're trying to heal yourself, that soul fire is, if you add that into it, then you're not going to feel so duped. You're not going to feel so empty. You're not going to feel like you're not fulfilling your purpose, right? Because you took that step with your soul fire, which, it's just, it's very liberating, right?
It absolutely is. And I do want to note for the chat, this is a little less literal. So definitely more symbolic.
Very much so.
When you're breathing life into somebody else, it's absolutely, it's your life force. It's your spirit. It's who you are. People talk about shining your light and not letting it not be seen. And it's kind of along those lines. When you go out and you do give life to others, when you are being love, then you do give life to others. Those who are receptive and want to accept that, they'll take it. They'll run with it. They will allow you to breathe life into them and to go and continue to do good things. Some people hate encouragement. Some people actually really hate
Yeah.
it when you try to love on them. It drives me crazy. I'm like,
Mhm.
don't you want to have a good day? Damn it. Like, don't you want to have like a
No,
good life?
no,
Like, what's wrong?
seriously.
Like, take some encouragement,
No, I agree.
you know?
They just can't. They can't because they don't love themselves. They can't encourage themselves. They can't love themselves, so they can't accept it from us. So it's like, oh, it's those people who always have something negative to say. It's like, oh, it's a beautiful day. Well, it was supposed to be, 70 degrees and now it's only 50 degrees and now that's not good. And just always negative, like nothing's happy. You want to stay that way.
Yeah.
You really do. If you cannot find a reason to be happy or to overlook the 3D that is giving you such, depression, if you can't go within yourself and know that there is something better, then you want to stay there. Honestly, you do in the dark.
Well, and it's exactly what she talks about in the very first chapter, really laying out what the wild woman is. Lakisaba, she who knows. It's choosing, those people choose to stay in the desert of their souls. And it is the wild woman's job within us. All of us have this aspect to revive those dead parts of yourself. That's more about what it's talking about. We're reviving those dead parts of ourselves. And as we start to do that, we do that for other people. It's,
Yes.
It gets
Yes.
triggering when you start to live in that.
Mhm.
And, because people aren't always ready to pull up the bones of their psyche and look at them and say, oh yeah, I want to breathe more life into this and, resurrect myself. They don't want to do that.
Exactly.
It's scary. It's weird. It's
yeah. I feel really sad for them, because we accept the love that we think we deserve, right? And they think very low of themselves, and we can't help them with that.
No.
That's the thing. That's why it's so sad, is because we can only help people who are willing to help themselves.
Yeah.
Because it all starts in the psyche.
Yeah. Great point. And she'll kind of touch on that later. Because this is totally the stepsisters and the stepmother too. Sometimes it is absolutely external people, and sometimes it's just within us. Mostly we're talking about within us extending outwards. So
right,
yeah,
right, in the psyche and stuff.
Yeah, the rest is yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say that I wasn't going to touch more on the colors, but I know that you might want to touch on the colors, because I remember you had a real significance with red and white, because your colors for your wedding was red and white, and that was because of the life and death.
Yeah, for blood and bone. So yeah, I love that she actually goes into this, because her asking Baba Yaga these questions is her actually attempting to understand the life cycles. Because, how can you stand in the face of the hag and not want to know the mysteries?
Right.
Like, ask. That's the point. She's the one with all the fire. You need to know. So it does talk about that. I'm tempted to go into all of them, but
Please,
in a nutshell, yeah, we could go through some of these. They do represent, the black, red, and white horsemen, which are all the colors that she and her doll are wearing.
That was awesome.
I love that. They connotate birth, life, and death, descent, death, and rebirth. The black for dissolving of one's old values, the red for the sacrifice of one's preciously held illusions, and the white is the new light, the new knowing that comes from having experienced the first two. Let's see here. There's like, geez, do I just read this whole thing? I
know, it's so much.
So hard not to.
It is.
Let's see. So the colors in the tail are extremely precious, for each has its death nature and its life nature. Black is the color of mud and the fertile, the basic stuff into which ideas are shown. It's the beginning of everything. Yet black is also the color of death and the blackening of the light. The black has even a third aspect. It is also the color associated with that world between the worlds, which La Loba stands upon, for black is the color of descent. Black is a promise that you will soon know something you didn't know before. Red is the color of sacrifice, of rage, of murder, of being tormented and killed. Yet red is also the color of vibrant life, dynamic emotion, arousal, eros, and desire. It is also a color that is considered strong medicine for psychic malaise, a color which rouses up appetite. There is throughout the world a figure known as the Red Mother. She is not as well known as the Black Mother or the Black Madonna, but she is the watcher of things coming through. She's especially proprieted by those who are about to give birth. For whosoever leaves this world or comes into the world has to pass through her red river. Red is a promise that a rising up or borning is soon to come. Guys, the horizon, you get to see it every day. It's
Yes.
so
That's a
beautiful.
good correlation.
White is the color of new, the pure, the pristine. It's also the color of the soul free of the body, the soul unencumbered by the physical. It's the color of the essential nourishment, mother's milk. Conversely, it is the color of the dead, of things which have lost their rosiness, their flush of vitality. When there's white, everything is, for the moment, tabula rasa, unwritten upon. White is a promise that there is nourishment enough for things to begin anew, that emptiness or the void would be filled. This is the last part that I'll read. Besides the horsemen, both Vasilisa and her doll are dressed in red, white, and black as well. Vasilisa and her doll are the alchemical analogon. Together they cause Vasilisa to be a little life-death-life mother in the becoming. There are two epiphanies or life-givings in the story. Vasilisa's life is revivified by her doll and by meeting with Baba Yaga, and thereby through all the tasks she masters. There are also two deaths in the story, that of the original Two-Good Mother and also that of the step-family. Yet we see how easily the deaths are proper, and that they ultimately cause the young psyche a much fuller life.
I'll pick up from there. So this letting live, letting die is very important. It is the basic and natural rhythm which women are meant to understand and live. Grasping this rhythm lessens fear, for we anticipate the future and the ground swells and the emptyings out will hold. The doll and the yaga are the wild mothers of all women. They provide the penetrating intuitive gifts from the personal level as well as the divine. This is the extreme paradox in teaching of the instinctual nature, and it is a sort of wolf Buddhism. That is one is both. That is two makes three. What lives shall die. What dies shall live. Because remember, way back at the beginning, I mentioned whatever wolf you're talking about. That's what we're talking about here. What is one is both. What is two makes three. Whatever lives shall die. I'm really glad that you read that through the reviving of the doll and her meeting, because that was a good correlation there, because we do have two what is it called, life-giving stories. Vasilisa's life revived by the doll, and then being revived again by meeting this wild woman, and then we see the original death of the Two-Good Mother, and then the subsequent death of the step family once they're no longer needed. It's a rhythm. It's a cycle. You go through it all the time, and if you learn the cycle, grasp its rhythm, then you no longer fear. You no longer have to anticipate the future with anxiety, because you know that there's an ebb and flow, that what gives life will eventually die, and what dies will eventually live. That was great.
Yeah.
I loved all of that when I was reading.
I know, I was like, this is so good. Oh my gosh.
I love the way she writes and describes things. It catches your imagination.
Yeah, she really is a beautiful writer. I think she ends that portion with the wisdom of not asking too much, to know too much, to make one old too soon. Because she doesn't ask about the hands. Where do they come from? Whose are they? What? She doesn't ask about that. It's just not time for her to know that sort of thing. She's just barely
Exactly.
learning about the cycles. You think she can handle that kind of gnosis? So
Right.
there's, I think it's cute
Hmm.
that the author asked her friend about this story.
Oh
Her
yeah.
family, yeah, and she's just like, there are simply things which cannot be known, and just sits there like,
Yes.
I'm like, yeah,
That
okay.
was awesome.
Some things are God's
Yeah.
business.
That is true. That is true. And we're just not meant to know. We're not meant to understand. And we need to be okay with that,
Yeah,
because, I'm too busy chewing over here on what I just learned. Like, let me learn how to get this down first.
you'll know if it's for you to know. You will know. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Oh gosh. And she kind of touched a little bit about, why it was a good thing that she didn't ask about the hands, because when she asked about the horsemen, it was an easy, full explanation. It was something that Vasilisa could grasp. The hands that appear out of nowhere, that takes a little bit more understanding. That takes a little bit more of an understanding of magic, I guess, whatever Baba Yaga, is doing before, so there's levels, there's steps. Baba Yaga didn't say she couldn't know. It
Right.
just said she cautioned her that too much knowledge too quick could not be good.
What ages you?
And yeah,
It ages you. It puts
yes.
you into that crone
Yeah.
status really fast. People who are old souls type of thing. And there's
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
saying that old souls are terrible. I am an old soul. But if you can make yourself really old internally, and it makes it difficult to connect with people. It would basically put Vasilisa in a position where she'd be better off in the woods like Baba Yaga. Yeah, there's a reason she
Mm-hmm.
lives out there.
Yep. Yep.
Doing her thing, she
So,
does it.
and nobody bothers her.
Yep.
And she's not influenced by anyone else but the nature, but wilderness, but the wild. She gets to be herself 100,000% without any judgment. Um, and she's giving Vasilisa, a little bit of a taste of what it's like. She a
Mhm.
little bit is rubbing off on her. I loved how Clarissa said a little bit earlier. She's becoming odd in a goodly way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And you would too after being around that.
You would. You'd have to. Like, I don't think I could stay in her house for, however many days that she was staying and not be changed and affected and be like, oh, yeah, I like this meal. I'm going to make this meal for myself one day, right?
Yeah, you would. Be like, I see how this works. That's convenient.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How do I get to the
Right,
woods
right. Like,
quicker?
I could definitely do this in my house.
Yeah.
Like, oh, gosh.
So good.
To finishing off this little section here, it says that it is another set of cycles the Yaga alludes to, cycles of a woman's life. As a woman lives them, she will understand more and more of the interior feminine rhythms, among them the rhythms of creativity, of birthing psychic babies, perhaps also human ones, the rhythms of solitude, of play, of rest, of sexuality, of the hunt. One need not push it, the understanding will come. Some things must be accepted as being out of our reach, even though they act upon us and we are enriched by them. Like you said, the saying in my family is some things are God's business. So by the end of these tasks, the legacy of the wild mothers is deepened and intuitive powers emanate from both the human and the soulful sides of the psyche. And now we have Adal as a teacher on one side and Baba Yaga on the other.
Mm,
What a beautiful pairing.
that is beautiful. I'm spacing out on her name right now, but she actually does incorporate. There's a woman who works with the moon and hosts workshops and things like that for ladies, and she does incorporate the wild woman as another phase of womanhood. So there's actually four
Nice.
aspects that we all experience, And there's actually, I mean, when you map out the moon, there's about 4 weeks. This is pretty accurate. You can divide it up however you want. You could do 2 weeks, you could do 3, you could do as many as time, segments as you want. But having that fourth is really beautiful, because when women, I found this out talking with some other ladies, when women actually become mothers, they don't stay in that mother archetype. Yes, you're teaching a little person, you're helping them develop, but you actually go back to being the maiden. And so having the wild woman as a buffer between the maiden and the crone is probably really healthy for raising children.
Yeah.
It's because it allows you to, because a mother is somebody giving birth and birthing. That's like that you are a mother. And then you go back to being the maiden, because you're not a mother. You're not birthing. You're not in that process anymore. So, but you're also not the crone yet. I mean, you go through a phase where, you kind of mourn, you do die a little because you're not a thing before, but now you're the wild woman. And as the wild woman, then you can really teach. You have the intuition that comes before, that Vasilisa's learning. And you have these gifts of the crone, who's gone through a life-death cycle in giving birth. So I love that. I love that the wild woman can be something that women can incorporate and really rest in and feel comfortable with. Instead of just being like, oh, we're just these three, and now I'm the maiden again. I don't, or maybe I'm not, and I'm not really a mother. But you birth a business, you birth art, you birth poetry and song, you birth so many things.
Yes.
So
yes, you do.
We go through these cycles.
I love that. I love that, because like you're right, there are normally 3 archetypes for women, and if we add that fourth in, it's way more well-rounded, because there are more stages. I'm sure there's probably more stages than 4, because nothing is cookie cutter here in this plane. Everyone is different, but adding that fourth one in gives a like you said, cushion, to the learning, and allows more room for growth, more room for error, trial and error, because you have to go through trial and error. You just don't know until and there's nothing wrong with that. People are so scared of making mistakes. People are so scared of sinning. People are so scared of doing wrong. And it's like, we know right from wrong. Right from wrong. Stop putting yourself on eggshells, on glass, on thin ice. There's nothing that you have to be scared of. The rhythms are there. Like, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, but I love that you said that there was birthing psychic babies of the creativity. There's solitude, there's play, there's rest, there's sexuality, there's hunt. There's different rhythms, there's different paths, and there's different stages, and you have to fall with the ebb and flow and be okay with that.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't want to get too far ahead, because I think this next section is one of the best, but I will give a little bit away. The 4th chapter does touch on something that would be really great for men to tune into, because while women also have this archetype, you do too. Dudes, totally. Yes. I mean, please take what's here for yourself too, because there is a part of the wild man nature that's not, it's not just like, oh, like Tarzan, like, yeah, shit in the woods. Like, I mean, yeah, men are ridiculous, and that's what we love about them. But the wild man also looks for this wild woman nature. So, definitely takes it.
All right, Kevin, Deshill, Anthony, Effie Nation, I'm calling all y'all out. Listen, y'all need to tune in for chapter 4, because we're going to be talking about the men's side of this. So moving next, we've only got 2 more. So number 8 is standing on all fours. So I thought this was quite interesting, because Baba Yaga is repelled, quote unquote, by Vasilisa's blessing from her deceased mother. And then she gives Vasilisa this fiery skull on a stick and tells her to leave. So this part is trying to tell us that taking on immense power to see and affect others, which is receiving the skull, and then looking at one's life situation in this new life, finding the way back to the old step family. So this was quite interesting because Vasilisa has been through a lot at this point, you guys. That she has lost her mom. Her dad is like non-existent, like he's just oblivious. She's ending up with this step family who has sent her out into the woods hoping to get rid of her. She's found her intuition. She found the wild woman. She went through all of these tasks for days on end, and now she finally has this fire that she's supposed to have gotten for her family. And it's this skull. It's a fiery skull on a stick that the Baba Yaga hands to her, but she hands it to her hastily because she learns that Vasilisa has a blessing with her. And she's like, oh, wait, what? We don't know about that. We don't need that around here. Here, get out before some of that rubs off on me.
Ew.
Right? Ew. And the story, and Clarissa's like, okay, so why would Yaga all of a sudden, be offended by a blessing? Is Baba Yaga not good? Why is a blessing a bad thing? And she points out that it's all about the fact that the wild woman has already overcome the naive child. She is no longer sweet and innocent. Baba Yaga doesn't need any blessings. Baba Yaga has already, her nose and her chin are touching each other, y'all.
Right?
She's got her house that's on, this isn't the house on chicken legs?
Yep.
Yeah. She's got her house on chicken legs and, twirling in the woods and everything. Like, she don't need any more naive blessings. So she's like, okay, you still have too much of the maiden in you. You still have too much of the naive in you. You have come a long way, long enough, far enough for me to give you the light so that you can see your way back, and that you can also come back to me when you're ready to learn more, because that light works both ways, right?
Yeah, that was so good. You nailed it. Yeah, it says, although sweetness can fit into the wild cannot for long fit into sweetness. When you learn everything that Baba Yaga has to teach you, there's no way you can go back to your family and continue to be like, oh, compliant. Yes, I can do this. Oh, just go ahead and step on me. I'm a doormat. You can't. You cannot.
Nope.
That doesn't mean you're going to go back and be a bitch, but it does mean that you're going to stand in your power.
Exactly. There's a difference between being a doormat and not being a doormat. I was going to try to come up with another thing that was like the doormat, but I couldn't think of. I didn't want us to be the door. I was like, no, we're not the door. I don't know. But we're not a doormat. People are not stepping on us and putting all their all of their baggage on us and hating on us and stuff. We go back, so I don't want to get too far ahead either, because you read that although sweetness can fit into the wild cannot long fit into sweetness. She then says, when women integrate this aspect of the Yaga, they change from accepting without question every tinker, every barb, every dadu, everything that comes their way. They gain a little distance from the sweet blessing of the too good mother. A woman gradually learns to not just look, but to squint, to peer, and then more and more and more, to suffer no fools. I mean, girl, I don't know about you, but I know some 40, 45, 50-year-old women who do not suffer no fools. They have been through so much already. They squint, they can pick them out real fast, right? They know.
Like, oh, okay.
Right?
Heard.
Like, how did you even see that? Like, all he did was sneeze, girl. Yeah. As soon as I knew.
Right? She's like, I've seen a lot of sneezing.
Right? right way, I knew.
Right? Did you see how you just threw it on the ground?
And it be that way sometimes. Oh my gosh! So that's the intuition at this point that Yaga and Vasilisa are at. That intuition to suffer no fools, and then. So hold on, right now. Having now served the Yaga created let me just read this out loud.
Yeah.
Having now, through serving the Yaga, created a capacity within herself which she did not have before, Vasilisa receives a portion of the wild hag's power. Some women are afraid. This deep knowing via instinct and intuition will cause them to be reckless or thoughtless, but that is unfounded fear. So this is where you were talking about. On the contrary, lack of intuition, lack of sensitivity to cycles, or not following one's knowing causes choices which turn out poorly, even disastrous. So this is back where we were talking about, we all know that little voice in our head when we're supposed to listen to it. We all have that voice in our head, and we look back and we say, I knew that was going to happen. I knew I should not have. I knew I should have. I felt this gut feeling and I didn't. Hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is 2020. But that little voice is all there is what we're trying to cultivate. That muscle, we're trying to strengthen it so that we trust our own intuition more and move forward.
Mm-hmm. She says, it doesn't matter whether a woman's concerns and aspirations are personal or global. Before all else, every action begins with strengthening the spirit.
The spirit.
Yeah, the spirit.
Because that's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
We are spirit. We are consciousness. Everything starts in consciousness. I've been getting into that more and more lately, Rachel, the fact that, the only thing that truly exists is my consciousness.
Yeah.
The past and future both exist in my brain, but my mind exists now. So the only thing that exists is my consciousness. If we can wrap our brains around that and our inner monologue to ourselves would change, because I know I am the meanest person to myself, and that is not healthy. When you are internalizing all that hate, all that doubt, all that self-doubt, self-hate, loathing, first of all, it shows up in your body because your mind is connected to your body. So you got some ailment somewhere that you need to, it's amazing. You could heal that ailment if you just loved yourself. You could heal that ailment if you just didn't say, man, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't.
Well, and you know what? I am so thankful for my husband, because when I vocalize some of that stuff, he just goes, don't talk about my wife like that. It's like,
ooh,
oh, yeah.
Oh.
And so like, oh, don't say that about yourself. Don't talk about my wife like that. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
I
right.
like that.
I won't. I will not talk about myself like that.
I love that. Snaps to the hubby for coming through.
Well, thank you.
Seriously, because that helps us, it makes you stop and hear yourself, because sometimes, you just say it because you're so used to saying it, but then it's like, oh, I actually heard what I just said, and whoa, that really wasn't nice.
Oh,
is that what I really think about myself?
That's really not, I really shouldn't beat myself up about that. Because then you're letting those step siblings and family really get back to you. You're letting the little rats gnaw, and you're not supposed to feed them. Well, clean their cage and take care of them, make sure they have some water, because they can make nice, fun pets. But but you don't just, throw them some garbage and shoo at them and encourage poor behavior. You don't want to do that to any aspect of yourself at all, or anybody in your life.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it's all about who you feed. And you might want to take that rat and feed it to some snake one day. Because you might need to snap at somebody real hard, but you don't throw away the rat. The rat has its purpose. It is part of you. You just keep it in its cage and you take it out when it needs to come out.
Well, I love that you drew a comparison to Bluebeard in that, Because you're right. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do feed that rat to a snake. You have an inner
Yep.
hierarchy. Maybe it would benefit you to gain a little cunning, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and to exercise those skills and to transform and transmute those things. That's why you don't destroy them. You cannot and shouldn't, well, you should not destroy any part of your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
That breakdown is
No.
meant for creation. That's the whole point of the life-death-life cycle. It doesn't actually disappear. It doesn't actually die. You repurpose it. You know, if it helps for you to say, oh, that's dead, fine. You know,
Sure.
You might need to say that, but really understand that you're repurposing and redirecting that energy into something else.
Into something else. Oh, that was good. That was good right there, Rachel. Okay. So like at the end of this, you know, she talks, there was a couple things that I saw. She said, okay, so touching really quickly on the skull.
Yes.
So the skull actually does talk to her on her way back because oh yeah, we know Anthony. That's funny. Anthony says that rats are unclean and we shouldn't be eating rats. Anthony, get with it. We're not talking literal here, okay? Stick with the program, my friend. Kidding. Also, you guys go check him out on Discord because they got a great Discord fellowship going on over there. But yeah, so obviously, guys, we are not literally telling you to go eat rat or snake or anything like that.
Don't do that.
Okay, that's gross, in my opinion. But okay, so the fiery skull. The fiery skull is a lot more than Vasilisa bargained for. Okay, she thought she might have gotten, I don't know, piece of stick, right, that's lit, so she can just really just throw it in the fire real quick. Maybe some hot coal, bag of hot coals. You know, she just needs to start a fire real fast. This girl has a whole talking skull that's blaze on a stick, okay? That's a little bit intimidating. That's a lot of power right there. That fire talks to you, it guides you. I might want to take it back too. But the skull said, you know, I promise, you know, I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna lead you astray. I'm here for your good. We're a team. We gonna do this together. And then he gets to the house and he stares at the family. He looks into the soul of those rats. And those rats say, oh no, we're caught in the light. Oh no. And they start shriveling up. And that's the end of it. Because as soon as your intuition kicks in, as soon as you know, you can't unknow. As soon as the light returns to your consciousness, the other things cannot help but to diminish. I wish the story would have continued so that we could see Vasilisa like do some of her tasks to sweep up the soot or whatever and like use it later on. That would have been a good little ending to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's such a powerful symbol. And you're right, it is probably way more than she bargained for, but this type of gift it always is. I found that out myself. And a few other people have also found this out. And I love that it represents ancestral knowledge, you know, because a skull, you know, bones are thought to be recognized. Let's see, I'll just read it. But in other religious rites, let's consider the skull with fiery light. It's a symbol associated with what some old-style archaeologists called ancestral worship. In later archaeo-religious versions of the story, the skulls on sticks are said to be those of humans whom the Yaga has killed and eaten. But in other religious rites, which practiced ancestral kinship, bones were recognized as the agents for calling the spirits, the skulls being the most salient part. So, when the Yaga gives Vasilisa a lighted skull, she's giving her an old woman icon, the ancestral knower to carry with her for life. She's initiating her into the matrilineal legacy of knowing, one which in the caves and canyons of the psyche remains whole and thriving. So, I mean, that's so powerful. Mm-hmm. Having the gifts of your ancestors, I mean, first of all, your body is the biggest gift that you can visualize. this is it. This is one of the things. I'm in a group on Telegram hosted by Gordy Two Shoes called the Mystic Inheritance Conspiratorium. And in it, we read a lot of the books that his relatives left behind, their knowledge, their gnosis, their spiritual path. And last night we were talking about, and there's an evangelist who I heard about this from too. You can ask for all the gifts of your ancestors that weren't used, your spiritual gifts. They're yours. That's your inheritance. You can ask for that. You can have that. You might not know what they are.
Right.
So, just saying, careful, but they're yours. They're there for you. And so she's taking this intense, this blazing fire back to this family that's like, oh no, we couldn't even make fire. Like, they don't have it. They don't have any of that. And they
don't have that spark of life in them.
They don't have that spark. They're not using their inheritance. It's clear. So, I mean, and when you stand next to somebody who is, I feel like I've stood next to people who are living in their gifts. And it is like, man, anything dark just can't even be around.
No. Yeah.
Those things don't stand a chance.
They certainly don't. Did you read you read all the way to the windows and the mouth and then the ears?
No.
Okay. So I loved that it talks about the skull is thought to be the dome which houses a powerful remnant of the departed soul, one which, if asked, can call the entire spirit of the dead person back from a time in order to be consulted, which is basically kind of like what you were saying. I mean, everything from a previous dead person, it's easy to imagine that the soul self lives right in the bony cathedral of the forehead, with the eyes as windows, the mouth and door, the mouth as a door, and the ears as the winds. So it's all symbolic. Why the Baba Yaga chose heads or skulls to hold the fire. And, she said, it would have been different if it had been a leg bone or a foot bone or a pelvic bone or something. That would have held a different significant symbolic meaning. So the third eye, right, is in the forehead. That's where, a lot of our wisdom is too, right? Supposedly.
Yeah. It says, I like this, what it says that it represents, intuition has been set into Vasilisa like a center jewel in a crown. When a woman has come this far, she's managed to leave the protection of her own inner too-good mother, learn to expect and deal with adversity in the outer world in a powerful rather than complicit manner. She's become aware of her shadowy and inhibitory stepmother and stepsisters and the destruction they mean. She's negotiated through the dark while listening to her inner voice and has been able to stand in the face of the hag. She's served the hag goddess of the psyche, fed the relationship, purified the persona, kept clear thinking. She's gotten to know the wild feminine force and its habit. She's learned to differentiate and separate thoughts from feelings. She's learned to recognize the great wild power of her own psyche.
I mean, will you read that last one too?
Yeah. She's learned about life, death, life, and the women's gift about it all. With these newly acquired yoga skills, she need not lack in confidence or potency anymore. Having been given the legacy of the mother's intuition from the human side of her nature and the wild knowing from the Lakisaba side of the psyche, she is well enabled. She goes forward in life, feet placed surely one after the other, womanly. She has coalesced all her power and sees the world now and her life through this new light. Let us see what happens when a woman behaves thusly. I mean, man, your soul on fire.
Right? Let's see what happens when a woman behaves as if she trusts herself, as if she has intuition, as if she has courage, as if she's got that it's that peace, I guess. That's not the word I was looking for, but when we were saying earlier, some people don't have to prove themselves, right? Because you're coming from a lower place if you have to prove. But here, she's not trying to prove anything. What would happen if women stopped trying to prove things to people and just lived in their intuition? I mean, whew, that's a new world. That's a brave world. I don't know if people were ready for that world.
Right? That's a very different world.
Very different world. But Vasilisa is no longer afraid of anything at this point. She's walking back through the forest with her intuition held out in front of her. Whereas on the journey to the wild woman's house, she had her intuition hidden in her pocket, and she would try to just kind of consult it when she felt like she needed to. Now it's ablaze in front of her, and she just follows it. She doesn't care who sees it. She knows that it's shining, right? But she's holding out to it first. And it might be hard. It might be heavy to hold that thing. Mm-hmm. Her arm might get tired. She might have to change arms. There's the thing about life or any of these metaphors is we never said it was going to be easy. Just because something is simple doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's supposed to be easy, right? There are challenges that we're supposed to overcome to make us better people. When we face hard things, that is what makes us better people. So getting your intuition, she had to work for it. She had to do all those tasks. This is her reward. And now that she has this reward, she doesn't just get to stay at Baba Yaga's house. She's got to go back through the forest, right? She's got to learn how to not be afraid of the power that she has that's talking back to her, and make it to her new life in her new form. Which is where we're coming to now, which is the final task, which is, oh God, we definitely need to go through this. So recasting the shadow. What are you talking about, Anthony? We're talking about Baba Yaga, not yoga. Okay, not yoga. So Vasilisa journeys toward home with the fiery skull and the stick. Okay, we already said that she almost throws it away, but the skull reassures her. And once she's back home, the skull watches the stepsisters and the stepmother and burns them to ashes. First of all, the skull doesn't have to do shit but look at them, because light reveals truth, and truth will either disintegrate, that whatever was there will either disintegrate or it will blossom. So he just looked at them real hard in the eye sockets and they disappeared.
It's like, see you.
Right? So this task is showing us that using one's acute vision, which is the fiery eyes, to recognize and react to the negative shadow of one's own psyche and or negative aspects of persons and events in the outer world, and then recasting that negative shadow in one's psyche with that hag fire. The wicked step family, which formerly tortured Vasilisa, is turned into cinders. So this is again where we kind of come back to that word. She uses discrimination, but I want to use discernment, because she's listening to the skull. She's using discernment when she's listening to the skull, right? And then it says, a fiery light emanates from the eyes, the ears, and nose and mouth from the skull. It is another representation of all the psychic processes which have to do with discrimination or discernment. And also related to ancestral kinship, and therefore a remembering of the people, the ancestral talents that we can ask for. Like Rachel said, I mean, you can ask for them, but you don't know what you're asking for. Baba Yaga said you can ask, but you just you might not want to know some things, but if you feel like you can handle it, please do, because you obviously need to grow some more and you need a challenge, so you need to go ahead and ask. It looks like I got a little bit ahead of myself talking about the skull and stuff before I talked about reshadowing. But she says the skull is another representation of intuition. It doesn't hurt neither Yaga or Vasilisa, but it has discernment of its own. And she carries that knowing, that blaze knowingly. She has a fierce sense of direction. I already said, how she became afraid of it for a little bit, but then she kind of moved forward because it's a supernatural voice that the skull is instructing her. So, to put it in a little bit more terms that the audience that's listening right now might know. So you might, in religious terms, say that the Holy Spirit, right, is the talking skull. And that is a supernatural voice, that Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, I think it has the capacity to be within all of us. It is within all of us. Discernment, intuition, source is in with all of us. And you don't need to be afraid of it, but we are taught to be afraid of it because we're not taught to trust our inner knowing and our inner selves. I definitely got way ahead of myself, I see here. So if you wanted to elaborate, this was the portion that I was getting on.
No, you were right in sync. You're right in sync. It's like, yeah, good point. It's not another piece of the body. It's not, she does become afraid of it, and you will, but you understand what you have. You'll understand that this will isolate you more than you isolating yourself with negative self-talk by trying to prove yourself. That was something, that does happen. And she mentions that when you're sitting there trying to prove and you're constantly looking for other people's approval, then you are actually still causing a separation. But this is a different kind. This is something that makes you rise above. And that is really scary for a second. But the skull reassures her. It's like, it's okay. This is actually going to improve her life and give her what she needs. So, it's really good. I think, and she says, each woman who retrieves her intuition and Yaga-like powers reaches a point where she's tempted to throw them away. For what's the use of seeing and knowing all these things? The skull light is not forgiving. In its light, the old are elderly, the beautiful lush, the silly foolish, the drunk are drunken, the unfaithful are infidels. Things which are incredible are noted as miracles. The skull light sees what it sees. It is an internal light and right out in front, shining ahead of a woman like a presence which goes a little bit before her and reports back to her what it has found ahead. It is her perpetual reconnaissance.
Oh, that was so, man,
woman,
right? Because that's why we're scared. That is the exact reason why we wouldn't want the light of the truth. Because it will show us exactly how ugly, things are. The things that we've been hiding from ourselves, about ourselves. It can be scary. And but not even maybe some of the things that we've been ignoring about our partners, about our family, once you have that intuition, you can no longer shut out you can't ignore the fact that the old is old. You can't ignore the fact that the drunk is drunken. And you're faced with a choice. Are you going to throw the light away, or are you going to fix what it is that needs to be fixed? And there's nothing like, the light isn't there to make the old feel bad for being old. It's not there to make the drunken feel bad for being drunken. It's there to show you and force you to accept that it is what it is. And you either will change it or you won't. But that's what it's there for, is to show you that this is an area that needs to be or can be changed, or something that you don't have to put up with anymore in your mom or your sisters or your partner or whatever it is, something that's unhealthy, because we all have room to grow. And then you are faced with that choice. I think some things like the stepmother and the stepsisters will disintegrate easily,
Mm-hmm.
without much effort after that intuition. But there are some things that won't disintegrate easily, which won't dismantle easily, which you will have to take action to say, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to stop being so self-centered, or I'm going to make a conscious effort to do XYZ. Whatever it is for you, you might have to take that extra step forward. Kind of picking up where you left off, it says, yet when one sees and senses thusly, then one has to work to do something about what one sees. To possess good intuition, goodly power, it causes work. It causes work firstly in the watching and the comprehending of negative forces and imbalances both inward and outward. Then, secondly, it causes a striving in the gathering up of will in order to do something about it. So, there are some people out there who they need that skull on a stick in order to light that up. But then they're going to sit there for a while and they're going to have to gather their strength because they're so tired. And I understand that. I have been there. I know what it's like to be so fed up with everything that you just want to let go. And you might, once you realize that intuition, you realize you need to change something, you might not want to change it right away, but that light's not going to go out again. So you need to gather up your strength to actually take that challenge. So I appreciated her wording there, because gather up your will, you got to do something. You're going to either be in good, you're only going to be in balance, you're either going to live or you're going to die. It's your choice at that point.
No, that's kind of the truth. So something I had underlined was, jumping just a little bit ahead, if you're surrounded by people who cross their eyes and look with disgust up at the ceiling when you're in the room, when you speak, when you act and react, then you are with the people who douse passions, yours and probably their own as well. These are not the people who care about you, your work, or your life. A woman must choose her friends and lovers wisely, for both can become like a bad stepmother and rotten stepsisters. When the wildish woman has an idea, the friend or lover who will never say, well, I don't know, sounds really dumb, or grandiose, undoable, or expensive, etc. to me, a right friend will never say that. They might instead say, I don't know if I understand. Tell me how you see it. Tell me how it will work. So, as much as the light will show you all the really hard things, it will start to show you the really beautiful things too. And I think we're also afraid of that. We're afraid to experience that joy and the ecstasy of living in love. Because that's what happens. You start to live in love. And that doesn't mean like you're all wishy-washy, oh, life is rose-colored glasses. No, you're love as in a place, a frequency of being. It's where everything starts to fall into place and things thrive. And the things that die, as she learned, will naturally die. And you might have to mourn some of them, and some of them you won't. You'll be like, yeah, it was just time. And that's... it's beautiful. And she talks about, let's see here, how things start to become a smorgasbord, how following your intuition, the way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself what it is that you want. This is the sorting of the seed from the dirt. One of the most important discriminations we can make in this matter is the difference between things that beckon to us and things that call us from our soul. That's what discrimination is about, right there.
Yes.
It's not about likes or dislikes. It's, is this good for my soul or not?
Yes. Is this something that is been presented to me as an option that looks, interesting, or is this something that is instinctively already inside of me, waiting to get out. What it is that I want. Oh, this smorgasbord. This is the part that I'm so glad that we're finally getting to, because I think that, first of all, women don't ask what we want.
Yeah, don't. We have
No,
to
we do.
ask ourselves.
We do. We need to ask ourselves, because it's not what your husband wants. It's not what your kids want. It's not what your mom wants. It's, what do you want? What do you want? What would be best for you? And it is really hard sometimes. I know I speak for myself, and I don't have anybody else necessarily that I need to speak for. Like my boyfriend, I know he got his own life. He knows what he wants. I'm the one that I have to know what I want. And say that with my own confidence, that it doesn't matter, if what I want is hurting somebody else, because it's not, because there's enough to go around. I think, for me particularly, connecting with this story, it's like, me wanting or stating what I want does not take away from anyone else. And for some reason, that lie has been in my head, that when I give or when I take, I'm taking from, and that's not the truth. And I know there's probably someone else out there who lives like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stacey, Sunshine, it is really hard sometimes, really hard to say what it is you want and then to go for it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think we're pressured in this life to know exactly what you want, and that it's the final answer. And I love that she says, is that on the smorgasbord? Maybe yes, maybe no. In most cases, probably not. We will have to quest for it a little bit, sometimes for a considerable time. But in the end, we shall find it and be glad we took surroundings about our deeper longings. Like it, yeah, exactly. It's baby steps. And sometimes you have to just try things, and it's okay to just try things. Is this what I want? Sometimes we can get really hurt and burned doing that, but that's how you find out.
Yes, exactly. That is how, trial and error.
Yeah.
You will never know if you never try. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. So, I mean, if you never take, like, which one do you want? You want the 50-50? You want the 25-75? You want some chance, right? Otherwise, you just get nothing. I loved how she said, so when we're connected to the instinctual self, to the soul of the feminine, which is natural, which is wild, and instead of looking over whatever happens to be on display, we say to ourselves, what am I hungry for? What do I long for? What do I wish for? What do I crave? What do I desire? What do I yearn? And those, and if you, we didn't touch on this, but a little bit earlier, she did talk about dreams, and how if you ask yourself a question before bed, and then you wake up the next morning with that answer, because you're asking your subconscious that question, and then you go and you're meditating on that question, and the subconscious is filtering through, and then you wake up with that answer from the subconscious. This is what I need to do personally. I need to go to bed every night and ask myself what I want, what I crave, what I yearn, what I want, what my purpose is, and I'll wake up the next morning and I'll know what I want, because I will have been the one to meditate on it. No one would have put anything in my brain, because it's all within me.
That's what I love about flipping coins. The second you flip it, you know. You know which one you want. You know exactly. Yes. It doesn't matter what it turns
out. I love that too. Because if you get the wrong one, then it's like, oh, I want the other one.
Right? You're like, oh, maybe 2 out of 3. But you know.
No, it's like, stop. All right, I know what I want. You don't have to worry. And half the time when you flip it, it's in the air and doesn't even come down, and you know what you want, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay.
It's like instant.
All right. So.
It's a fun practice. I was going to bring this part up because it stood out to me, and it kind of addresses something that Anthony said in the chat. Don't ask women what they want. Tell them what you want of them. Yes and no. You tell a woman what you want for you, actually, because that's going to help her understand what she wants for herself. She's either going to want to go along or not. Right. Because it says a lover cannot be chosen a la smorgasbord. A lover has to be chosen from soul craving. To choose just because something mouth-watering stands before you will never satisfy the hunger of the soul self. And that is what intuition is for. It is a direct messenger of the soul. You know, when I talk to my husband about the things that we want to do in our life, we're a team. We have the same things. When we're like, oh, I want to garden, I want to plant this. When he says what he wants to plant, I know what I want to plant. I know what I don't want to plant. You know, when he's like going crazy at the garden store, I'm like, oh yeah, I want that and I want that and I want that. I mean, we brought home so many seeds, we got doubles. So
that's amazing.
And there was some stuff where I was like, heck no, not that. I don't like that, you know? And then it was like, and that's the key is when you're in a partnership, it is, you know, then I'm going to know. It's important to understand what somebody needs. You know, if you're in that situation, yes, tell me what you need from me. And I'm going to ask you, you know, I'm going to tell you what I need from you. Those are
because, you know, they can't figure that out. You know, if you're a man or a woman, either doesn't matter which you are, you cannot read the other person's mind. Okay. And you cannot expect that other person to read your mind, right? Like, communication is key. This is something that I'm learning myself, you know, but you're right. I'm glad, Anthony, that you agree with us. But, you know, when a man states what he wants, the woman states what she wants, and then you see if what each other wants lines up. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. And you just have to find that soul craving in a lover, so that someone that you're willing to go back and forth with, because there's never going to be complete harmony. Okay. It's never going to, if you are searching for perfection in any way, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't hear a single thing that we say on this stream today, know this: you will never find perfection. You are never going to be fully satisfied, because that is the nature of this place. There will always be room to grow. Once you get your one goal, you're gonna be over that in 2 weeks, and then you're gonna find something else to go and crave. Okay. And then when you get that, you'll be satisfied for another week. Okay. So we are not looking for the perfect partner. We are looking for the perfectly imperfect partner who can fill in the gaps of our own soul. Okay. Someone we're willing to have that little bit of friction with, but we can still grow with, because friction is still good. Iron sharpens iron. You know, you got to keep things fun and interesting. You know, if we were just all, you know, the same, it'd be the most boring partnership ever. But you know what, Stacey, I hear you. I am the same way. I like perfection. Okay. And I like that you are always in the now, because the now is perfect. Okay. Yeah, let me get back down off my horse.
No, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's totally the point. And she goes into, you know, strengthening that connection. I mean, that's how she's ending this out, is strengthening that connection and not allowing anyone to repress your vivid energies. That means that your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas, your values, your morals, everything. There's very little right or wrong, good and bad in this world. There is, however, useful and not useful. There's also things that are sometimes destructive, as well as things which are engendering. Like, it's, take all of it for what it is. It's when you understand the rhythms, then the little things that we're taught that don't, you know, go in harmony or are disharmonious won't bother you. You'll enjoy it. It's like listening to music and hearing a beautiful melody and then some weird discord and then a harmony, and you like the whole piece because of that.
The whole
dynamism. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I love that. I love that. That was so true. Because, you know, we do, gosh, our society, especially here in America, we are so just two-sided, left and right, wrong and right, red and white. I mean, red and blue, right? There's only two things to choose from, only two ways to be. No, okay? Everyone has their own thoughts, ideas, and values and morals. There is no such thing really as good or bad. You are the one who puts parameters on things. But there are things that are harmful. There are things that are useful. There are things that are destructive. There are things that are empowering. So if we're going for those things that are good in our mind, those things that are useful to us in our mind, that we're only going to be passing on those vibrations to other people, because people feed off of vibrations, right? Then they won't think that there's so much bad in the world, maybe.
Yeah.
And then she brings it back all to the life, death, life cycle. Because like we were talking about in the garden, everything can't bloom all the time. Things die and then they come back. Some things don't come back and you have to replant them. Further intuition provides options. Here we go. When you are connected to the instinctual self, you will always have at least 4 choices. The 2 opposites and then the middle ground, and then taken under further contemplation is the 4th one. If you have not vested into the intuitive, you may think you only have one choice, and that seems an undesirable one. And perhaps you feel that you ought to suffer about and submit and force yourself to do it. No, there's a better way. Listen to the inner hearing, the inner seeing, the inner being, and follow it. It knows what to do best. One of the most remarkable things about using intuition and the instinctive nature is that it causes a sure-footed spontaneity to erupt. Spontaneity doesn't mean being unwise. It's not a pounce and blurt attribute. Good boundaries are still important. I don't know. What is this word?
Oh, Scheherazade.
Scheherazade.
Yeah, Scheherazade.
He had pretty good boundaries. She used her cleverness to please while at the same time positioning herself to be valued. Being real doesn't mean being reckless. It means allowing the mythological voice to speak. One does this by shutting off the ego for a while and letting that which wishes to speak, speak. Good boundaries are important, but boundaries don't have to suffocate spontaneity. And spontaneity doesn't mean unwise. Like there's all of these. I'm so glad that she put it like this, because man, a lot of times people pair spontaneity with recklessness, and that's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I love being spontaneous in really smart ways, because it does give you a lot more options. Oh, we can do this now. We can do this, and we can do this. If you're being spontaneous in a reckless way, okay, you can break a bone and then you can't do anything.
Exactly. Right? Now you got to pay some hospital bills. Right? Yeah. It's all about choosing it being wise. I love that. We're almost done. We only got one more page. We're at the end, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's been about 2 hours. We're going to wrap it up here soon in just a little bit. Let me see if there was anything else on this page. Did you see anything? I'm going to skip down to their purpose.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Right.
So it says their purpose is to help you, to care about your art, to attach you to the wildish instincts and to elect your original best. They guide the restoration of the intuitive life, and they are thrilled when you make contact with the doll. We see that to remain a bubbling and too sweet we have seen that to remain bumbling and too sweet is dangerous, that we must, develop our soul more into this wild woman so that we're not taken advantage of. The wild woman is the one who dares to create and who destroys. She is the primitive and inventing soul that makes all creative acts and arts possible. She creates a forest around us, and we begin to deal with life from the fresh and original perspective. That's why we have to allow the naive to die, the too sweet to die, the maiden to die, because we come back with fresh and original perspective. We're able to grow and move forward and handle these new challenges with new intuition.
And I mean, she talks about meeting those people in our lives. You know, when we were saying earlier, it's like I've met these ladies who are in their 40s or 50s, and like they know some stuff, and it's like that's you will meet those people and always learn from them. You know, and
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's really beautiful. To let things die is the theme at the end of this tale. Vasilisa has learned well. Does she collapse into a fit of high-pitched shrieking as the skull burns into the malicious ones? No. What must die, dies. It's like, and that is such a valuable lesson because we can hold on to things that are past and it keeps us from growth every time.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. And we know that there are like those things that we need to let go of, especially if those things are super unhealthy for us. That someone said that there's two or three different kind of people. It's the people who see with when shown, and the people who never see. Right. So, crap. Where was I going with this? The things that in ourselves that we know that we need to change. So there's some people who need to it pointed out to them, like, yo, like this is a problem in your life, and if you continue down this road, you will kill yourself. Some people need that wake up call. Some people just need that already know, and they're just ignoring it, and they need to be real with themselves, and they don't need that outside. And
Yeah.
then there's those who it's so far down in their psyche that they are so unaware. They think that they are healed. They think they're winning at life. Their scars have healed, or their bones have healed, in such a catawampus way. They don't even realize that they could be better. They could be fuller. That they're just, those people. We pray for them and hope that they can one day.
Right.
But Vasilisa, so this whole story, which is so much better than Cinderella, she was empowered by her too good mother. She trusted the doll that was passed down from her mother to her. She tried to be too sweet and kind with her destructive step family and ended up being a slave. And through trying to service them, learned in her own way, her own intuition, and faced herself that she doesn't need that step family anymore. She was able to go through challenges in order to cultivate the different skills that she would need. She was able to, this was one thing we didn't really talk about, but I'll hit on really quickly here. Because Clarissa was like, so how did she know that she shouldn't have asked the last question? And, we don't know. Those are just that's just one of the things. That's just intuition. The doll just knew. And sometimes the Holy Spirit just knows. Sometimes Source just tells you and you just go with it. You just go with it. Now wasn't the time. And then she gathers that power. She earns that power. She earned it. She went through everything, and respectfully, she got a thumbs up. She got a really reluctant thumbs up from the Baba Yaga. And got what she came for. She made it through the woods with her intuition ahead of her, no longer hiding it. She might have been a little bit apprehensive about it. She might not have been, so gung-ho about it, like, yeah, I got this, and we go in. She was kind of like, this is a lot, and that's okay. You don't have to jump in feet first and expect to know everything, because it's going to be a learning curve. When you get that power, you're still going to have to learn how to use that power. And when she does get to the house finally, the first thing that power does, without having to use much force, because sometimes we already know it needs to be disintegrated, the step family is finally just gone, and then Vasilisa is living her life like a queen, like the queen she is, like the empress, because that's what we found out Vasilisa means, which is empress. So isn't that funny? Oh gosh, that was much better than Cinderella.
Well, that was perfect. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Boils down to listening. And the great thing is, while you were talking about that, I was thinking, the one thing that they all hated about her just grew exponentially. That she
Yes.
didn't actually lose any of her sweetness in gaining all that
Mm-mm.
knowledge. She probably knew how to wield it better.
Probably.
When to be sweet
Exactly.
and when to be
Mm-hmm.
kind and when to acquiesce. And that's powerful. That's really, I mean, when you know how to do that. So, I mean, that's that skull burning into them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Oh gosh. I know for me, some lessons that I'm taking away from this is definitely to trust my inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
Is to definitely ask myself more questions, ask myself what I want, and to be honest, and not afraid to go after it once I realize what it is. Don't waste time asking, permission from anybody, to be happy or to live into my purpose. And then to the soul fire. I appreciated that. Making sure that my soul fire is in my creations, is in my love life, is in my relationship with my friends, with my family. Not being topical about a smorgasbord, just seeing that, this is what's handed to me or offered to me, but knowing that I can find something else that's even better than what's offered. And then, yeah, by the light of the fiery skull, I shall know. that's the last. That's the last
Yeah.
line. And Stacy says that, which if I will come up here, and if you aren't happy, change things until you are.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree.
Beautiful.
What about you, Rachel? What are you going to take away from this?
I mean, really, that, asking myself what I want. I've been practicing that a lot while reading the story because it is, I can worry about, oh, well, what does my partner want? What should I want? What does my
Mhm.
family want right now? All this stuff. But
Mhm.
ultimately, what it boils down to is, what do I want? What do I want right
Yes,
now? Do
exactly.
do I want to eat this? Do I want to drink that? Do I want to sit outside? Do I want to take a nap? What do I
Mhm.
want? When I get to
Mhm.
work, what am I going to work on? I don't have somebody telling me you need to work on that. I know what needs to be done. What do I
Yeah.
want to start?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I love that. So empowering, this story, you guys.
Yeah.
That's why all stories are supposed to be empowering. Definitely not supposed to tell you to go see some wicked witch under the sea and lose your voice and make it all about a man and,
Yeah.
whatever else Disney is telling you. Um, that's why I love going through this book, because it helps us break it down. Because when you know when a story was written and what the symbolism is about, then it finally clicks. It's like, oh, okay, all right. So this is what this story is trying to tell me. And I love the next one. We're going to be on Rachel's channel next week on Odyssey. Chapter 4 is talking about the mate union with the other. And we're talking about the hymn for the wild man. So, fellas, Kevin, you're still here. Anthony's still here. Um, King of Cups. I'm assuming you're a king, a real king. So,
He
hi,
is.
dude, Ryan.
Hey, Chris.
Okay. Ryan and Sunsy, y'all need to come listen next week, because we're going to be talking about some things for you. And if we don't finish the whole chapter, which I think we might, this might be one where we can finish it at one time because it's a shorter chapter.
It's shorter.
Then of course the next one will be on my channel. But oh, hey, biochemistry is still here. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. If you need to share anything in the chat, please go ahead and drop your channels, drop your discords, share your information. I don't mind. I thank you all for participating in the conversation. I know I didn't give any heads up on this live. So I also thanks to Rachel for being flexible with me and working for that. Yeah, this is just a great little book. This is not a little book.
No, it was like, not more chapters than I remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of chapters, right?
Like, holy moly.
Oh gosh. And then finally, before we go, I'm going to do my last plug in here. Give me 1 second, Rachel. Let me see if I can just, what am I going to do? Am I going to do this? Yes. No. Is this doing it? Yes, it does. So I have selling candles here, handmade, hand-painted, home craft candles. All organic soy wax with non-toxic fragrance oils and a wood wick. Wood wick right there. You know what? I'm going to take off my my background just really quickly so that you guys can see. I don't care if you guys see. I have a green screen here, but so it's got a wood wick, and these are hand painted or Mod Podged. Right now on Fridays, I'm going to have a sale for this 3 set. It comes in lemon, grass, and sweet orange, which is 1 cent. And then a vanilla is the next cent, and then lavender. So that set is on sale. Please follow me on all social media at REL Creations, LLC, for your handmade gifts and creations. And then, you know, we're going to be back here next week to talk about the next story. Anything you wanted to say in part, Rachel?
I think everything that could be said has been said. Thank you guys so much for being here live with us. I know, yeah, we didn't really announce it to anyone. It was kind of fun, though, to just kind of spring in. So I'm going to try to do some stuff with live because it is fun. I'm usually on Weaving Spiders Welcome. I haven't been on lately, but I'll get back into that groove soon. And yeah, definitely check out stuff that's on my Odyssey. Those are more, it's meant to be more casual conversation, but they're not very casual. They're pretty deep, but
yeah.
So, you know,
awesome.
Big thank you to Ralph for going through this book with me, because it's definitely a good one. It's been a lot of fun, and I know it's a book that really changed my perspective on a lot of things and really helped ground. So thank you guys for being here. And I hope that all the guys are getting a lot out of this. It is recommended reading for men, honestly. If you're looking for that wild woman in your life, you need to know what she looks like. And even learn how to set yourself free too in some ways, because you're just as wild and amazing. And
yes,
you know, you deserve it. So yeah, much love and many thanks.
Much love. Yes, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I don't have anything, you know, like a normal stream. So we don't have any music to play out or anything. So we're just going to go ahead and end it. So, thanks.